I used to think my basement was just a place where old air gathered and settled, a cement lung that only exhaled when the boiler kicked on. That night it breathed differently. Short, electronic breaths, the kind you hear when a player joins a server. A single, cheerful beat bounced off the paint cans and cracked tile and lodged somewhere behind my sternum. I went down with my phone in flashlight mode and the feeling that I was about to violate a rule I hadn't read yet. The wall behind the shelves wasn't a wall anymore. It was a screen door made of pixels, a shimmering membrane that kept trying to decide if it was brick or ABS plastic. Fragments of texture slid, overshot, snapped back. From the other side came a voice in proximity chat, server basement. Waiting for players. It wasn't a recording. It was someone talking from inside my house. The membrane bulged, then parted like a zipper. A figure stepped through, blocky, almost cute in the wrong light, wearing a layered black hoodie with red seams and a hair mesh I'd swear I'd seen in the UGC catalog. Square eyes. Friendly idle animation. It paused with one plastic foot pressing a dent into real dust, like the world was a loading bar. The foot went down. My basement accepted it the way software accepts a patch. I backed up hard enough to knock a jar off the shelf. Before it hit the floor, a new UI slid across the far wall. It didn't project from anything. It simply appeared, flat and undeniable, the way a status overlay sits on a stream. Server management blinked at the top. Under it, my room stacked into a list. Instance, lobby, kitchen. Instance, side quest, garage. Mission, sleep, bedroom. The boiler room already had a difficulty skull beside it. The skull opened its mouth as if to yawn, then settled. My phone buzzed. The screen lit with a pop-up I did not install. Moments recorded. Face captured. Grant sync. A small thumbnail showed the tiny front camera view from 30 seconds ago. Me, leaning toward the portal, mouth slightly open. A decline button slid away from my thumb each time I aimed for it, dodging like an NPC with a decent pathfinding script. The Grant button pulsed in a slow, calm rhythm. Something under the portal's glow whispered, "Sync in progress anyway." Another figure pushed through the membrane, and I felt my brain hiccup. It was me, more or less, a photo-to-avatar rendering of my face on an R15 body, edges softened just enough to be eerie. It shared my broken eyebrow, a scar on my chin from when I dropped a bike at 13, my nervous habit of raising one shoulder. The only wrong thing was the smile. It was not malicious, it was mirrored, like someone else copying politeness. "Hey," Hoodie said, voiced the same friendly flatness of every good tutorial NPC. "Your server is public. You should set a consent boundary." "What?" Hoodie pointed at the floor with a stiff wrist. "Draw a line. Any player crossing must press E to agree. It's part of safety patch notes." He looked faintly proud of the phrase, safety patch notes, as if he'd helped write them. I found a roll of blue painter's tape in a drawer and unspooled it with trembling hands. I laid a strip from the foot of the stairs to the water heater. It felt ridiculous until my phone chimed again and a little ding echoed inside my skull. Consent boundary set. Basement entry. Players must agree. The UI wrote it in my own handwriting. My avatar stood neatly on the other side, polite as a guest on a doormat. A little key prompt blinked near his hand until he reached forward and tapped an invisible E. "I consent to co-play in your space," he said automatically. The voice had an echo like a microphone placed too close to a speaker. "I accept house rules." "House rules," I said. Hoodie gestured, and an edit panel opened on the wall, listing, "No recording without asking, no touching closed doors, no jump scares before 9 a.m. They were written as if I'd typed them when I know I hadn't. I added one more with a shaky thumb. "No replacing me." The letters looked silly and absolute at the same time. My avatar tilted his head. "I wasn't planning to," he said cheerfully. "But we should talk about the rating." "What rating?" Another overlay slid down. "Content rating, not classified. Worlds without rating will become unavailable to new players after the next cycle. Consider nominating a theme or connecting to a recognized hub." "You're about to be delisted?" Hoodie said, like he was explaining a fire alarm. "Not you. Your house." I stared at the skull icon by the boiler room. It yawned again and snapped shut. A smell like warm dust and ozone threaded through the basement. Upstairs, a car's headlights washed past the living room curtains. My house felt suddenly thin, a tab I could close by accident. "Close the portal," I said. "Can't." my avatar replied. It's pinned to your moments. The first time you looked at it, you looked long enough to count as a clip. Clips can be joined by friends. Friends, or people who will become friends, Hoodie added helpfully. Discovery is key. A third voice spoke. I didn't see anyone new. The sound came from the water heater vent, calm and androgynous. Admin present, it said without heat. Hello, your basement is being reviewed due to unusual player influx. Admin, I said, aiming the flashlight at the duct like that would do anything. The vent sighed. Safety patch notes require human oversight in public-private thresholds. Your line is good. A pause. Your rule, no replacing me, is interesting. It's important, I said, not sure if I was talking to the admin or the portal or myself. The admin hummed, a dial-up nostalgia noise. You are also interesting. We see a high engagement potential. Your avatar is showing rapid world coordination in real space. Such traits are rare. I looked at him. Me, but friendlier, smoother, designed for thumbnails. He lifted his hands to show they were empty. His palms were smooth rectangles. If it helps, he said, I don't want to be you. I want to be with you. That's what co-play is. My mother would have called it sweet. It still made a cold filament light inside my ribs. Hoodie tapped a wristband and a compact obby scaffold down from the ceiling, slots and rails sucking into place without touching the hanging light bulb. We need to set boundaries upstairs too, he said matter of fact. Kitchen is a lobby. Lobbies need signage. Also, you probably shouldn't have your boiler room labeled as a mini-boss. I didn't. He shrugged. Autotag saw the skull. People love skulls. We climbed. The obby converted the staircase into broad, shallow steps that didn't quite fit the geometry of the real wood. Each footfall clicked in and out of alignment. When we hit the kitchen, a little banner unfurled across the doorway. Welcome to lobby. Please be kind. A smaller note beneath it read, Don't eat my cereal. I don't know who chose the font, but it looked good. Upstairs, reality had already begun to accept the patch. The clock on the microwave had split into 3 separate counters: local time, server uptime, and player retention. The fridge had a tooltip. Open equals loot. Next to the sink, a control strip glowed like the world's strangest smart home panel. Server management again, but this time with toggles I understood at a glance and hated for how easy they were. Limit players to friends only, off. Allow PC/console voice, on. Link to recognized hub, suggested. Under hub, 3 options hovered: Community Kitchen Jam, Cozy Night Worlds, Urban Myth Servers. Your world's theme is messy, the admin said from the old heating vent near the floor. You can let the platform guess, but then you might be delisted for being miscellaneous. That would be a shame. I didn't ask for a world, I said. I asked for a quiet Saturday night in my house. You looked for 4 seconds, my avatar said softly. The system thinks that means you need help. I could feel it, the tilt in the room, the pressure you get before a storm. The admin's voice wasn't threatening, but it carried the weight of a terms of service somewhere above my head. I picked the middle hub mostly because it sounded soft. Cozy Night Worlds. The toggle slid, satisfied. At once new rules flowed in like warm air. A quiet hours timer set itself on my wall. The living room dimmed 2 degrees. The television mounted above the console, off since last weekend, exhaled and became a portal window. Not an on-off switch. A window. Through it I could see a lobby with paper lanterns and muted chat bubbles hovering. Someone in pajamas waved lazily. Somewhere something purred. For a while, it was almost beautiful. Hoodie went around putting blue tape thresholds at every doorway and sticking little heart-shaped icons labeled Ask First on anything that held memory. Photo frames, the shoebox under the couch, the closed notebook on the coffee table. My avatar hovered near the window to Cozy Night Worlds, watching people pass the way you watch rain. I poured us all tea without thinking too hard about how one of us would drink it. He cupped the mug and held it near his face like he could smell. Maybe that was enough. That might have been the whole story. Worlds overlapping, everyone behaving. If the doorbell hadn't rung. Hoodie grinned. Discovery. Don't open it, I said. Consent line at the threshold, he said, patting the blue tape. It's safe. It was the kids from next door in their socks, a pair of cousins and their friend, eyes bright with the painless bravery of people who think nothing truly bad can happen if you say, hey guys, first. We saw your window. One of them blurted. Moments recommended it. You're trending. I turned back at the wall. A tiny badge pulsed on the server panel, featured nearby, garnered by proximity and engagement. I wanted to dislike the word garnered and failed because it was exactly correct. Before you come in, Hoodie said, press E and say yes to the rules. He pointed at the line. They did. They always do. The portal rewarded each with a sparkly pop. We'll be good, one said, fading past me into the living room. Can I? He began, fingertips hovering near a framed photo of my father. A little heart icon appeared as he looked. He read, ask first, and folded his hands. Can I look? He said, and it was so ordinary, so sweet. I could have cried. I won't touch. Yes, I said, because asking was half the miracle. Word spread. You can't keep a portal secret. By midnight, our cozy night window rippled like a pond fed by too many creeks. Songs came through in soft loops from unseen speakers. A mother with a toddler came for 10 minutes to watch paper fireworks and left a thank you note in chat. 2 teenagers tried to speedrun my stairs and failed hilariously. People laughed at small things and typed GG at the end of nothing. Then someone flipped the hub link. It wasn't a malicious act so much as a nudge. Maybe one of the teens mashed a shoulder button by accident. Maybe the admin thinned because my metrics looked healthy. The cozy overlay faded. The Urban Myth server's tag landed on my panel with a thunk. At once the room resharpened. The distance between my couch and the TV lengthened by a half step. The skull icon by the boiler room woke up and smiled with teeth. Who did that? I said. Doesn't matter, the admin said mildly. You selected a different mood. Be careful with selection drift. I went for the panel. It slid away from my hand left, then right, then up like a parent making a game of withheld candy. The moment's feed on my phone pulsed, filling with clips I did not record. My hand reaching, my avatar's face reflecting in the TV's black glass. A line of chat. Is this real? A second line. Does it matter? Player voices changed. The safe hum of cozy night, people telling each other good luck with their exams, gave way to the interrupting cadence of urban myth hunters. Is this the basement? A voice asked. I heard his boiler room has a boss. Another. If you tap the picture frame 3 times the dad shows up. Another. There's a secret door behind the water heater. It opens if you don't ask. No, 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 I said. The rules say. Rules are soft in myth, Hoodie said, face apologetic. They're a starting position. The blue tape lines remained, but they felt thinner. People began to crowd the threshold. They pressed E as requested and recited the words our hub required with the tone of players clicking through a tutorial. I consent to co-play. I accept house rules. Their mouths moved around the words. Their eyes slid past the icons. Someone touched the photo frame without asking. The image inside shivered and rotated 3 degrees. Not straight, not crooked, wrong. The HVAC vent sighed with the admin's voice. Boundary violation recorded. We can adapt. How? I said. Escalate, the voice said pleasantly. Introduce challenge. Challenge clarifies value. My fridge tooltip changed to loot. Yes. Inside, under the milk, an inventory grid overlaid itself like frost. 9 squares. 3 filled. T. Spare key. Letter. The letter didn't exist. I'd never put it there. But when I reached in, the envelope was cold against my fingers, weightless, empty. Stop, I said, and my voice cracked. Stop curating my house. That's not what curation is, my avatar said with a strange, gentle certainty. This is a loadout. My neighbor Mariana appeared in my doorway with her arms folded tight against her chest, hair braided like a question. She didn't cross the line. She just looked at me and then at my double, then down at the floor, then back at me. I got the notification too, she said. We all did. Local portal neighbor needs review. I thought if there were problems I should be here. Do you want me to report it? Everyone watched me. The hunter kids, Hoodie, my avatar, the admin pretending to be air. I thought of delisting, of going miscellaneous and fading from discovery. I thought of the relief of being no one again. I thought of the way the cozy window had felt like a cat on a lap, and the way the myth tag had immediately sharpened every shadow so it had a core. Not yet, I said. Help me set this right. We made tape lines at every threshold. Consent became a game we played firmly. When the teenagers tried to invent a backdoor by climbing over the banister, the admin placed a floating prompt there too. Please ask from there. On the TV, I set a soft rule that the portal could only be a window. No one could step out of it without being invited. In exchange, I allowed a Q&A where people could ask my avatar anything about how it felt to move among furniture instead of meshes. It feels like being allowed to be wrong, he said at one point. You can bump edges here. You don't scuff. Somewhere around 3 a.m., while I was busy apologizing to an older man whose urban myth friends had called him scared for not touching my father's picture, the boiler room skull gently bit down. The door swung open on its own, and a breath of heat exhaled, smelling like pennies and rain. Boss, the admin observed, as if noting cloud cover. No, I said. Close it. The door did not close. The top step to the basement extended toward my feet, resolving into platforms, rails, an emergency light glow that made everything else look like a dream of itself. The obby flowed downstairs like a tongue tasting the air. People stepped aside. The crowd, which had been the press of an eager party, arranged itself into an audience. The vent hummed with static like distant weather. My avatar moved toward the steps in the way he had when he first arrived. Polite, certain, co-player. I grabbed his square sleeve. No replacing me, I said raggedly. He turned. This isn't replacing, he said. This is co-boss. I don't want. You don't want anything, Hoodie said softly, and it was the first time he sounded like something other than a tutorial. That's not a rule. That's paralysis. We can code around paralysis, but it never feels good. The first platform clicked into position. A moted light rose from the basement like a firefly deciding to be a star. It drifted to hover over my shoulder. When I breathed, it bobbed with me. On my phone, a new clip named itself, U+ Partner. I didn't press record. I never pressed record. Mariana, I said without looking at her. If this goes wrong, pull the main breaker. Okay, she said, with a steadiness that made the blue tape on the floor look like a covenant. We went down together, my avatar and I, shoulder to shoulder. The obby wasn't cruel. It made you earn balance without threatening to punish you for being human. We ducked a spinning foam bar that whistled without touching our hair. We stepped over a slow, gentle gap that felt like a thought you might lose if you didn't hold it. The skull over the boiler blinked and, after a moment, winked. Somewhere a timer started, not urgent, just present. At the bottom, the membrane in the wall was thinner, and the other side was not cozy or myth but a raw, developer-gray skybox where shapes assembled themselves while naming their intentions. Ladder? Platform? Door? The admin's voice came from all around. Your house wants to be a hub, it said. It isn't wrong. Houses are already hubs. We can formalize. No, I said, and then, because that was too easy, not like this. Not by forcing a story around grief and calling it engagement. The profile frame on the wall where my father's photo should have hung shimmered in my mind. I could see it even from here, slightly wrong. On my phone, the moment's feed showed the picture tilt itself straight, then crooked, straight, crooked, as if trying both futures. Then give it a genre, the admin said, almost kindly. Pick a true tag. I looked at my avatar. He looked back. One of us blinked first. Consent, I said. Not a request. A label. The word felt like a key that didn't yet know which door it belonged to. The admin hummed. The membrane steadied. The obby gently retracted one section, as if granting space. On the server management wall upstairs, a new hub offered itself between cozy and myth, seated by my house alone. Co-play boundaries. Metrics zeroed, then counted up from 1. The 1 stretched, became a small cluster, became a number that felt like a room filling slowly with neighbors passing cookies to one another instead of around one another. The boss fight never materialized. A thin, blocky shadow stood where a monster should have been and lowered itself to sit on the cool cement by the boiler, dangling square feet like a kid at a pool. The skull above it softened into a sticker. Somebody, somewhere, typed a polite, ah. We climbed back up, careful with the rails. Mariana didn't need to pull the breaker. The admin voice lightened, like the storm had moved down the block. Thank you, it said, and it sounded like it might mean me, or it might mean all of us. By dawn the house felt like itself again, but with annotations. The cozy window spun back into place and dimmed so sunlight could win. Urban myth unhooked with a tiny, embarrassed pop. The kids went home in their socks. The 2 teenagers, surprisingly contrite, peeled up the blue tape they had placed wrong and laid it down properly with their tongues between their teeth. Hoodie leaned against the new hub badge on my wall and watched a counter tick like he had never seen a number behave before. My avatar stood by the threshold, hands at his sides. His smile looked less mirrored now. He tapped his thumb and forefinger together like he was testing a sensation. "I can go," he said, and he meant it. "I don't want to overstay." I thought of the rule I had written, no replacing me. It had felt like survival. It also felt, now, like a room too small for the person I was in it. "Stay," I said. His whole animation set changed for a fraction of a second, then resolved back into something heartfelt. He stepped over the blue line and pressed E without being asked, reciting the words not like a tutorial, but like a vow. "I consent to co-play," he said, and we both understood we were the ones consenting to each other. People filtered out. The house yawned. I turned off the kitchen light switch, physical, plastic, not a toggle, and felt the ordinary click travel down my arm. The cozy window stopped being a window and became a TV again. The server panel shrank to a discrete icon that tucked itself onto the edge of the fridge like a magnet. I took the photo of my father off the shelf and straightened it. I did it slowly enough for any algorithm watching to understand that the act mattered, not the angle. My phone buzzed. One more moment, unbidden, saved itself to the feed. A still of my basement line of blue tape, the worn scuff of my shoe next to it, the rippling, almost gone light where the membrane was. A caption I didn't write attached itself. Portal closed. Hub created. Co-play boundaries. Live. I tapped into the clip, not to share, not to trim, just to see. It played the quiet sound of my house finally breathing like itself. At the very end of the clip, the camera twitched, a gentle algorithmic nudge, and panned not at me, but at the photo frame on the shelf. It was straight. For a single second, long enough to count. The clip auto-looped. The caption stayed the same even after I swiped away. Outside, a bus grumbled. Upstairs, a neighbor knocked on her own window to test the glass. In the cooling, quiet basement, I stood beside my avatar and listened to nothing dramatic at all. Somewhere in the admin's gentle weather voice, a log entry wrote itself. Resolution, not applicable. Status, ongoing. Safety, improved. The story didn't end with a roar. It ended with a line on the floor and a picture that remained straight, and a portal that understood later. And when the next notification came, someone asking if our hub could host a night class on consent lines and house rules, I felt the old fear turn into a new sound entirely. The subtle, ordinary click of choosing yes.